know, right? I say your
Mhm.
name, right, don't I?
Yeah. Like
Hey,
what? Like where you talk about?
you have a new last name now.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey everybody. So welcome to our third tribe call where we are focusing on food and our relationship with food. Today I have Marina with me. She is newly married, so I'm not sure what her last name is now. What
It's
is your
Axon.
accent? Oh, all right. So
Last
she
name.
our beautiful bride, newly married. So she's going to be with me today, kind of helping me go through the comments, ask questions. She was actually the one that spurred this topic. So I thought, why not better to have her on here so we make sure we get all our answers, all her questions answered. So we'll just hang out here for a while, see if anybody joins. We should probably drop a message in the group that we're live.
Yeah, and Laura's on. I see Laura
Hi, Laura.
just joined.
I'm just going to drop in the chat. All right. So, guys, I can't see anybody in the chat comments. That is weird. All right. So, as I said, we are going to get started today. As people come in, we will kind of revisit things, but I wanted to talk about kind of go back in time. Like we started this out talking about the little voice. And then we moved into how food is fuel and our relationship with food, which is what spurred this food is fuel. So, how should we fuel our bodies? How do you think we should fuel our bodies, Marina?
In a healthy, nutritious way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the things that I want to talk about, and I'm going to refer to my notes so I stay on track, is really what happens when we have, I did not even know you were going to tell me what you told me earlier, Marina. What happens when we stay tight all week and on the weekends we just decide that's all right, we were good all week, so I'm just going to have a treat meal. Oh, well, maybe I'm going to have a treat day. And then that treat day rolls into the next day and it's another treat day. So, what happens when we do that is if we think about it, and I'm not saying that that's what you did, you had a couple, but a lot of times this is what happens. We stay tight all week and then the weekend rolls around. We're like, oh, well, this one little won't hurt. And then it snowballs. Am I correct? Have you ever been there before?
It's a spiral. It's a
It's a
scary
spiral,
spiral.
yes. So if we look at it in mathematical terms, what happens is basically there's 4 weeks in a month. And let's say our weekend consists of Saturday and Sunday. That's 8 days out of a month that we have probably doubled our calories. That's almost an entire week.
When you say it like that, it seems like a lot.
Yeah. And if you start on Friday and it's Saturday, Sunday, now you're looking at 12 days, almost half of a month. So what happens is the body can never catch up. So you wind up a lot of times, like if you've been in a caloric deficit, you may not always find yourself gaining weight, or it might be just little bits that you gain, but you definitely will find your place where you will plateau. So a lot of times when clients start to plateau, like that's the first investigating that I will do is like, really, what were we doing on the weekends? Because that can be a telltale sign. So just a kind of a big way of looking at it. Because as you just said, when you look at it that way, it's like, oh crap, right? Like that's a lot. Yeah. So, guys, I can see a few of you watching. There's 4 watching. I got a couple of likes. Make sure that if you are watching right now, that you hashtag in the comments, I am here, and drop your name because I can't see your name. So go ahead and hashtag I am here and give us your name. And guys, if you watch this on the replay, again, make sure you hashtag replay. Hey, Dana. Hey, Amber. All right. Okay, so moving on from that. So that's kind of a huge, huge thing. So now when you want to think about like, so Jules, what can I do? How can I? What is the proper way to fuel my body? What you want to think about is the body is a lot like a machine. So it needs proper nutrients to work properly, such as who can tell me, drop in the comments, what are the 3 macronutrients that make up our calories?
You want me to take a stab at it?
Sure. Or drop it in the comment even.
I can do that. I'm going to say carbs is on my plan, protein, and fats.
Exactly. Absolutely. And Dana got it too. So fat, protein, and carbs. So these are all sources of nutrients that our body absolutely needs as a machine to function. So who has an idea of what carbs do for our body? What does carbs give us? Anybody know? Drop it in the comments if you know what a carb does for your body. Energy. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So carbs are what give us energy. They are what fuel our body. They give us the energy to get through the day. So then proteins. Does anybody know what a protein does? That might stump somebody.
Yeah, that's way trickier.
Mm-hmm. And probably why a lot of times we, especially as females, don't get enough protein. And that's a key thing. If you guys know what protein does, fuels our brain. It can. It can. And does anybody know why a protein fuels our brain? What is a brain? What is our brain?
A muscle?
Yes. Yes. Our brain is a muscle. So protein is used to build muscle. Now, it also builds other proteins in our body. It helps to work with our hormones. It rebuilds tissue. So it is the builder. Okay. It's the little bricks that build up in our body. Super, super important. So if you are like, especially like women, we do not eat enough protein. And so a lot of you guys in here have worked with me before. So by show of hands, how many of you eat more protein now than you did before you started working with me? Let's see some hands. I know I didn't eat enough protein. And who can take a stab at how much protein you should probably be getting? Hell yeah, me, Dana. How much protein do you think a body needs? Amber, yes, you definitely weren't getting enough protein either. Now you're a little muscle machine. Anybody seen Amber lately? She's starting to work on getting biceps that are probably bigger than mine. So how many grams of protein does anybody think that we should have a day? What's the minimum? 100 grams. 100 grams of protein is the minimum that anybody should really have, or a female should have. What you really want to look for is a gram per body pound. Now, the other one, which is fats. What does fats do for us? I want to wrestle Amber. Now we got shit talk going on in the comments. I love it. All right. Who can tell me what a fat does? 100 grams of protein is the minimum. Absolutely. All right. So fats, guys, actually can give us some energy, but they basically produce fatty acids in the body. So our body needs a certain amount of fat, like healthy fats, to maintain. The one thing that about fats that is unique as well, it only gives us a small source of energy. It actually gives us the biggest bang for our buck. So, like 1 gram of fat can give us 9 calories, like over where it takes much more grams of, let's say, a carbohydrate to get us 9 calories. So it does have its biggest bang for the buck. However, it is also the fastest one to get stored as fat when we overeat it. So if the body doesn't need it anymore, basically the body will break down the fat, use it as it needs to, and then when it doesn't need any more of the fat, it will store it in our fat cells. Hello, thunder thighs and extra weight on our rear end and the belly's fat.
Yeah,
All
nobody
of that. That's what's going on. So does that mean you should cut fat out of your diet? Absolutely not. As I just said, we need it, but we need good, healthy fats, and we need it in the right ratios. So some good, healthy fats. Marina, give me a good, healthy fat.
I don't know. What do I eat? Oh, salmon. You told me salmon is my fat.
Salmon is a good fat, and it's a source of protein. What's another good, healthy fat? Guys, drop in the comments what you think is a good, healthy fat. Could it be nuts?
Yeah.
Avocados? Yes, avocados. Nuts, nut butters, seeds, all of those things. So, and it absorbs vitamins. You are absolutely right, Dana. Fats do help absorb with vitamins. Absolutely correct. Everybody gives Dana some fire in there. She got it right. So now, when we think about the healthy fats, and we think about the proteins and the carbohydrates, there's got to be, different ratios. So the one thing that I really want to spend the most amount of time on here, guys, is carbohydrates, because first of all, there's a ton of misinformation out there. How many out there, think like, okay, so carbs are energy. So when they hit the body, they're broken down into glucose. Then the glucose is what creates the energy. So it can, there's different rates at where and how our carbohydrates are broken down based on what we eat. So that's how it becomes energy. The glucose feeds the muscles. Now we have energy. However, any extra carbohydrates that we don't need get stored as fat. That's where cutting carbs comes in. Okay. Now, the flip side of it is sometimes we cut carbs on purpose and we do cycling and different things like that. That's because if we fuel the body with X amount of fuel and we're playing the game right, like a lot of us. And so my philosophy that all of you guys are used to is eating frequently. Everybody write eat frequently in the comments. Eat frequently. Eating 5 to 6 meals a day can help be in a caloric deficit or cutting carbs because the body's getting fueled every 2.5 to 3 hours. Therefore, it doesn't want to store it as body fat because it gets more energy. So that's where the kind of the low carb things. And we want the carbs to be low at times because that we want it to burn through all the energy that we feed it and then start to burn body fat. Right? But there's different types of carbs. So does anybody know there's 2 types of carbs? 2. Who knows what they are? Marina, take a stab at it.
Complex carbs and non-complex carbs.
Simple carbs and
Simple.
complex carbs. Yes, absolutely. What's the difference between a simple carb and a complex carb?
The way they break down in your body.
Absolutely. So a simple carb breaks down very fast.
Okay.
Complex carb will break down a little bit slower. Now, there are different complex carbs that break down at different rates or digest differently. So what's an example of a simple carb?
pasta or bread.
Nope.
No, aren't those bad carbs?
We'll get there. But they're actually, those are not simple carbs. They're actually complex carbs. Guys, if you know the answer, drop it in the comments. What is an example of a simple carb? Potato? Nope, that's a complex carb. So I'm going to give you a hint. It's sweet. Most simple carbs are sweet. They're sweet because they break down so fast. And they get in this. The simple carb has a sweet taste. Candy. Absolutely, Dana. What's another one? Fruit, guys. So fruit's not bad for you. But fruit is actually a simple carb because the fructose. So it is a simple carb. It was not a complex carb. So bananas, oranges, apples, all of those are simple carbs, but they have different ratios. So berries are actually the best simple carb there are because they don't spike your glucose. So that's why a lot of you guys get berries on your plans. They're the least sweet. Bananas, very high in sugars and can really spike you. Honey is also an example of a healthier simple carb. So complex carbs, you guys already named them. So they digest down slower. That's potatoes, bread, wheat, all of those things. They take longer time to break down. But we also have refined and unrefined carbs that live in both of those categories. So what do you think we want to stay away from?
Refined carbs.
Refined carbs, absolutely. So refined carbs, guys, in a nutshell, without getting really crazy, and this is why, like, a lot of times, you know, why do you always have Whole Foods? Like, can't I just have, like, you know, popcorn, or can't and you can in occasions, and you look at things and you're like, here's the why behind it, because the refined foods will actually process a little bit faster, even as a complex carb. They have very little nutrition. So basically, you know, it's like putting nothing into your body. So you're basically wasting the food that you're putting. It has very, very little nutrient. It's not nutrient dense. How about that? I was trying to say it's not nutrient dense. Okay. So it's not nutrient dense. And typically what happens with refined carbs is they get stored as fat a lot faster. So refined carbs are usually what lead to obesity and diabetics. So that is why, like, you want to keep those out of the diet. So just shifting those out and living more in the unrefined carbs plan is going to be like huge. So if you're in here, you're listening to this, you're not on a meal plan, you're new to it, you're maybe thinking, I want to join, and you're looking to take little steps, like always, if nothing else, just shifting from a refined processed carb into a whole unrefined carb is going to be 100% better for you. So that would be potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, things like that. Different types of bread. So breads are refined, but that's why. So two of the best breads. List one bread that is actually really good for you. Most of you that are in here should know it because you probably had it on your meal plan a time or two. And there's a reason why it's on there. Sourdough. Sourdough isn't bad. There's one that's even better.
Is it going to be the Ezekiel bread?
Ezekiel, yep, sprouted bread. And that's because it's unrefined and non-processed. So those are the better ones for you. So now, taking all of that, guys, into consideration, now does it kind of make sense? So now when you're looking at making food choices and how to properly fuel your body, the next thing that you want to think about is like, well, what should I be feeding my body? Like, how many calories should I eat? Like, what does that breakdown look like? So honestly, and to give it I'm going to tell you how to do this, but so there's an actual system out there that helps you find out how many calories that you should actually have. And it's called, so first of all, you have to find your, I'm going to let you guys guess. What's the first thing you need to know? Does anybody have a wild idea before you can even begin to figure out how many calories you need? There's one thing that you need to know, and it's called your, does anybody know? It starts with a B, ends with an R.
BMI. Oh, I was gonna say BMI, but that doesn't.
Nope. Close, close. It's your BMR, your basal metallic rate. So it's basically what you burn just being you. So guys, you burn calories just being. Okay, so you got to figure out. So you need your body needs a certain amount of calories just to wake up, just to live. You can sit perfectly still and burn calories because it takes calories for your brain to function, your heart to beat, the blood to go through your vessels, for you to breathe, for you to blink your eye, move your feet, whatever. All takes calories. So you find that out using a numeric, it's like a formula that it's called the Harris formula. And it will give you about your basal metallic rate. Once you find that out, then you subtract from that your activity levels. So whether you're sedentary, light, active, very active. And what I'll say is most people are sedentary. You want to use those languages around what you do for a living. So, if you sit for a living in front of a desk, you're sedentary. If you have a job that you're on your feet all day long, I would say you're lightly active. I don't ever factor in the exercise. In fact, honestly, guys, when I was competing and we would factor me in, I was only at light activity myself or medium activity, and I was working out 3 hours a day, but I had a sit job. So, that's kind of the way you want to think about it. So then after you do that, then if you're looking to lose weight, you want to subtract 500 calories from that. So calories in, calories out. So you have to, if you are 500 calories under that magic number, after you figure out your BMR, you add in your activity level. So this is what you need just to walk around, eat, live, breathe, do your job. Then you subtract 500 calories from that, and then you're burning. You'll lose up to 1 pound a week.
And it's 500 for everyone?
Yep, 500 is across the board. So no matter what, that's the magic number that you would subtract, because everybody's going to have a different BMR. Everybody's going to have, because you figure that out with your age, your height, and your weight. And honestly, I could give you, so basically I'll give you the number, but you can also look it up on there's calculators out there, but basically you take, as a female, you'll want to take 655, and you want to add it to your weight times 4.3. Then you'll take that number and you will add it with 4.7 plus your height. Then you'll take that number and you will subtract 4.7 times your age in numbers. That's your BMR. Then, say, for example, you're sedentary, you would take your BMR and you would multiply it by, I think it's 1.2. Then you would have your basic average. And then from there, you would subtract 500 calories to lose up to 1 pound a week. That's just roughly, guys. So then what that plays into, and what I want to talk about more, this is where the nutrition comes in, is how do I break that down into macros? Well, the standard macros, so this is there's a lot of information out there, guys. There's a lot of different ideas on what that breakdown should be. I like to keep a maintenance person, if you're now, no matter what, I want everybody to write this down in the comments. No matter what your macro breakdown is, if you are in a caloric deficit, you will
lose weight.
Lose weight. Yes. No matter what my macro ratio is, if you are in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. Write that down. If you are in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. It doesn't matter what your macro split is. Doesn't matter, guys. So that's where you get keto, you got Atkins, you got all of these different things being thrown at you that are supposed, at the end of the day, the only reason you're losing weight on that is the same reason you would lose weight with anything else, because you are in a
caloric deficit.
Caloric deficit. Absolutely. Is this making sense, guys? Drop some fire in the comments if this is making sense and is helpful.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, I mean, this is really helpful to learn, because last week you said that we're the only animals that eat for pleasure. And like, I just never really even thought about the food I put in my body. And even when I tried to eat healthy, like, I didn't really understand, oh, well, I should probably tone it down on fruit, even though fruit is healthy. Everyone says eat more fruit, but then I wasn't accounting for all the sugar that's added and things like that. So definitely understanding the why behind it is really helpful.
And it's not eliminating all fruits. That's a really good, point that you bring up. It's thinking about the right fruits also at the right times.
Right.
So, for example, is a banana always the best thing to eat all the time? Maybe not, because if you think about what a simple complex carb does, is it's going to spike your glucose level because it breaks down so fast. So raise your hand, guys, if you have ever crashed in the middle of the day. Like, you're eating right, you have it, like you crash and burn in the middle of the day, and you're eating pretty darn good. Yeah. So a lot of times crash and burning, there's numerous reasons behind it. It can be too much caffeine and things like that, but it also can be due to a sugar spike. And a banana and high sugar fruits will actually do that to you if not properly used in your diet. So that's why a lot of times, guys, I keep you on berries, because it's low glucose, like glucose. Yes, and not glycemia, and it keeps your insulin levels. It doesn't spike your insulin levels, and it keeps you very level. That way, you don't get this. It's more long-term energy versus a short-term burst. Now, sometimes you need a short-term burst. When would be an example of when you need a short-term burst?
Well, when I watch tennis matches, they're always eating bananas in between, so they need that energy.
Correct. So a banana is great before a workout. That's why you see runners with bananas, because it gives them that short burn, and they're not going to burn out because it gets right into your system right away. So a banana before a workout, or even after a workout, can be a really good source of carbs. Now, you don't want to get carried away on it, but that could actually be, and sometimes I will put those into your plans. It's the same with grapes. Apples have a little more fiber, so they can be a little bit less. But so does that make sense? Help you out? So fruits aren't bad. It's just you got to kind of think about what they do and where to have them placed. And I always lean to berries because it's usually the safest one for me. So there's that. Is that helpful?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move into, guys, I don't see any fire burning down here. Guys, if this is helpful, please drop some fire. If you have questions, let us know. But I'm going to move on to the ratios. So the biggest thing that I will say, guys, there's two things that I think are really major important. So no matter what you eat, like I said, no matter what this macro ratio is, if you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. However, as we talked about in the beginning, you need the protein, you need the fats, you need the carbohydrates. So what's the correct ratio? Well, technically, if you are trying to lose fat, higher protein, less carbs, and I always keep most women around 24% fat, especially if you're in your late 30s to 40s and above. It's just the way that we process fat. It's better. We don't process it the same way that a younger generation will do. So I typically keep the average woman around anywhere between 26 to 20%. I usually try to keep you right in that sweet spot of around 24%. It might go either way a couple, but I try to keep it there. I look more, then from there, I look at the protein and I will look at carb levels. So lesser carbs, more protein will help assist with losing body fat and maintaining muscle. So one of the reasons why higher protein is, well, protein is the least likely to store itself as body fat if you eat too much of it. I'm going to say that again. Protein is the least likely of all the macros to store itself as body fat if you eat too much of it. So basically, if the body gets too much protein, it is not going to get stored as body fat. Carbs and fats will. So the body
fats first and then carbs?
Yes. Yep. So, I mean, now it depends on, like, again, you have to overeat the carbs. You have to be eating too many carbs, a lot of too many carbs in order for it to be stored as fat. And carbs are energy. So, you're safe. So about the normal percentage, if I'm trying to have somebody is maintaining weight, I'll bring the protein back down. And I like to keep most proteins around 40%, 35% at minimum for women, because again, we tend to undereat, and protein will keep you full longer because it's very slow digesting. Carbs, you can bounce all the way up to almost a 40%. So like our friend Amber in here, like she eats a ton of carbs right now because she's just a fuel burning machine. So she eats, well, I think she eats about, if I looked at her plan, close to 45% carbs. And then I've brought her protein, her protein sits more at about, I have her at about 35% protein. So she's a little higher in carbs because she needs the energy. All right. But I have to keep her protein at a decent level that she doesn't lose any muscle. Make sense?
Because of metabolism? Her metabolism is just crazy fast?
Her metabolism is crazy fast.
I wish I had that problem.
You will. If Amber was on right now, if I can invite her in, she would tell you that she was in that. So when Amber came to me, she was hardly eating. Amber, drop some fire if I'm correct. She wasn't eating that much. And she got to this place, like we brought her, we brought her down, leveled her out, and then her body just started firing. So once we got everything leveled out, we got her reset, and she kind of came down in a little bit of body fat. Her body just took off like a locomotive. It was crazy. I had to start pumping the brakes, and it didn't even want to slow down. So, but that's a really good point to bring up. Most people will behave like that. So I'm glad you brought that up. The tighter. So, if you think about the meal plans that I have you on, I tend to work off of a learn and earn. So the tighter you are on your plan, yep, you shaking your head, the more, we'll call it, refeeds that you could get in your plan. And that's the reason because it's, again, we talk about the locomotive. It's like throwing fire on the engine, right? Every once in a while. That's how the metabolism works. So if I think we talked about this last week, if I throw fire on the engine, that the little engine that could just start speeding itself up right down. It's happy to have all this wood. It's going to go faster than when it had less wood yes, you know what I'm talking about. So when we cut it back again, it goes, holy crap, where'd all that food go? So if you have body fat, now it's going to start to look for body fat to fuel itself. But that's how the metabolism starts working, because now it knows it's getting fed, and it's like little Pac-Man. It's like, where's that food? Where's that food? So everybody can get to that crazy place where their metabolism is running. That's where being very, very structured in your meal plan will earn you more refeed meals, and you'll burn right through them. Dana's another one. Dana, are you still in here? Raise your hand if you're in here, Dana. Dana's another one. She's got a pretty strong running metabolism these days. And she did too when she first started with me. Have we lost our tribe? We have 2 people left.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. All right. So, guys, if you want it, so those are like the ratios are different, but the things to really think about is one, just always remember if you're in a caloric deficit, you are going to lose weight. If you are, there she is, I see her. So the percentages, I always think around 24% for your fats. Think around anywhere from usually the 30-40 range for your carbs, just depending on where you're at in your journey. And then fat or your protein can be, I usually keep protein anywhere from 40 to 50. Very rarely do I drop it. Sometimes if somebody is, a little, say I have them in a severe caloric deficit and the macros just won't fit in order to keep a balance. And it's hard for me to kind of explain this to you guys, but like sometimes when I'm doing the math, it just won't work out. So then I have to drop the protein down, but I never allow it to go like below an ounce a pound or a gram a pound because I just can't make it work any other way. But I always keep them above 100. Make sense?
Totally.
All right. Fire some questions at me. What do you got?
When you said about the cycling, having a deficit, is it okay to have a deficit for a certain amount of time, or is that cycle? What's the kind of science behind why you have to cycle and then like pull back and then feed more and then that whole thing?
Good question. So there is a timeline to being in a caloric deficit. Somebody should really never be in a caloric deficit more than, I believe it's like 12 weeks or something, like a major one. So that's where enter in carb cycling. Okay. So that's where you can kind of get yourself around it a little bit, is to carb cycle, because now you're not in a deficit for a long periods of time. You get spiked, especially with carbs, up a little bit, and then you're back down. Okay, so that's number one, the reason why I do it, so I can hold you in that deficit a little bit longer, because most people like to see results. They don't want to plateau too much. So the carb cycle helps with that. And the other reason for the carb cycle is, again, the metabolism thing that I just talked about earlier. Carb cycling really helps, I find, with the metabolism, especially as we get older. So this might not be true in all, but I specialize mostly in 30, 40, 50 years old and above. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's definitely helpful.
But it brings up a really good point. We can't diet forever. So like when we get to a certain point, that's when we have to start to reverse diet. Sometimes it's going to happen naturally when your metabolism speeds up. Sometimes we just have to we're kind of forcing the issue a little bit. And that's, again, where the carb cycling comes in, is kind of forcing the issue for us to be able to continue to reverse diet. So again, I'll go back, like there's a few, but Amber she was in here. She's another one that she's really on a reverse diet almost. Like she eats a lot of food. Like she still loses weight, and I could put her on a lot more food to help, if I needed her to gain weight, and I could reverse her even more, but she's been reversed pretty high. So that actually even brings up a better question. I like that, actually. So when you first, like, you think about who in here was on a 2 week, some of you guys were on 4 weeks because you started earlier with me, but who was on a 2 week reset when you first started with me? That was a severe caloric deficit. So that was not just resetting your body, but getting your body kind of leveled out. Then for the next phase, which you guys don't really realize what I'm doing, is I keep you in a caloric deficit for that first phase. So that first phase isn't just about learning your meal plan. I'm also keeping you in a caloric deficit. The next phase is about starting to inch you up a little bit each time. So we're reversing you out, because what we want to do is typically we want to pull body fat off, right? Lean you out as much as possible and then start to build muscle. Because what would happen if you had a lot of body fat on you and I tried to start feeding your muscle?
Well, you wouldn't even see it.
You're going to do what?
Gain weight.
You're going to gain weight. But you don't mind gaining weight if if the scale's going up, but you still look like a nice, cute little tight package, do you? Because that's
right. That's the goal.
Exactly. So you're always going to be gaining the muscle. So that's not to say that if I was to feed you properly and enough food while you're in the beginning stages that you wouldn't gain muscle. You would, but you're going to gain weight because you're gaining muscle and you still haven't lost the body fat off the top. So it's about bringing everything in tight, getting it to a point. I don't mean like stage lean, but bringing in it and then starting to reverse diet and build that muscle out. Make sense?
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier, but the plateau phase. So some people plateau at a certain point. So how much can you go in before you plateau, and then like, can people miss the going out part in terms of when you plateau and you're trying to lose the body fat, build the muscle, but where does the plateau like hurt your process?
It's not really going to hurt. Everybody's going to plateau a little bit differently. About addressing it correctly when you plateau. So I've had several, in fact, I just had this conversation with somebody right before I got on this call that had a one-on-one with me, and we were talking about, so a lot of times if you're losing weight rapidly, like 2 pounds a week, okay? And I don't really create formulas for that to happen, but it does happen sometimes. It's just somebody's body is just really on a roller coaster. A lot of times when I see that type of weight loss, the body responding that way, and I will coach that person on the fact that we are going to plateau. The body is not going to stay, like it's going to start to level itself out. Yep, it's not sustainable. It'll start to, and when that happens, that's when we'll start to, like, we watch it. It should just slow up to like a pound a week. But if it stays like that, we'll probably plateau. And then I'll usually shift them into a reverse diet for a while, level everything off, and then we can go back to business again. And there's been a few that's happened to. Does that kind of make sense? But it's really hard to say everybody's going to be different. It's really about paying attention to the body, which, is what I'm really doing. And I'm looking at things as I'm looking at your check-ins, your progress. And that's, again, I'm glad you guys bring this up. It's like, is it kind of making sense why check-ins and all the information that I ask for is so important for me to have? Raise your hand if it makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah, because you're really using it to play your game of what you feed us and how we do our exercise and things like that. So,
and watching for like health, like I have to pay attention, like how your body's responding, so we don't get you into a bad place. I have to understand like how your body's responding, where you're at. Should I feed you more? Should I feed you less? It's all based on so many different things. So that's why check-ins are super important.
And that cycle of how much you should be eating when is about 4 weeks or so.
Every 4 to 6 weeks. Everybody's different. So again, that's a really good question. So I usually, it's about every 4 to 6 weeks that macronutrient should switch out, because that's what it's going to take for me and the body to basically see how the body's going to adjust. Okay. So the adjustments take about 4 to 6 weeks, and then you're going to see changes, and then it's time to make a shift. There's different ways of approaching it. And again, I've had these conversations with other people. It can be approached by raising the whole plan, like raising the calories, the macros, whatever it is within the plan. If that's where the point is, like, the refeeds are starting to be needed. Some people are creatures of habit and don't want their meal plans touched. Okay. And I get it. Like, if you're on a really severe weight loss journey and magic is happening, it's scary. Who in here, is afraid sometimes? Like, I don't know, but I know that there's been people in here, and raise your hand if there is, that sometimes get to a point where you're afraid to eat. So it's kind of the reverse, and I don't really want to go there because I'm like losing weight. So then what I'll utilize, and that is like a refeed. So I'll use Kia, for example. Kia didn't want to change her plan. She was one of those that was losing a lot of weight very, very quickly. She did not want to come off her plan. She liked the consistency of it. It was working. She was afraid if she broke that consistency, things up here might start to happen. She just wanted to do the same thing. So what did I do with her? She got a burger and sweet potato fries every single week and continued to lose.
Which sounds delicious. And it's crazy to think that a burger and fries is considered like a healthier option when that blew my mind.
But think about that. What is a burger?
Well, protein, meat,
and it's
complex carbs.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have a lot of red, meat, but it's a protein, and if we're not going to McDonald's, it's generally a good quality protein. And then you have a bun and you have potatoes, and they are what kind of carbs?
Complex carbs.
There you go. That's why. A burger and fries, guys, generally can be way better than a salad sometimes.
That blows my mind.
Because think of what goes into these salads sometimes that are on these salads. A lot of simple carbs, dressings, things like that. Sometimes there's a lot of fats into them. So unless you're building a healthy salad, a lot of the salads that you're getting from a restaurant can be way more detrimental to you than a burger and fries. And burger and fries is much more balanced. It's giving you. And when you think about refeeds, Marina, and everybody that's in here, you want to think about refeeding with what?
With protein?
No, close. What do you want to refeed with? If you're going to spike yourself and give yourself a refeed, what's the best out of the 3 macros? Guys, drop it in the comments if you know it is. Carbs. Absolutely. Everybody write, carbs is a great refeed. Complex carbs is a great refeed. The reason is because it's going to give you energy. So what's happening in the salad is it's leaning on the more, believe it or not, fattier side. Think of the things that go on a salad: avocado, nuts, and tons of it, dressings, things like that.
Cheeses too.
Right. Cheeses. So if you think about a burger without the cheese and you think about what you're getting a big burst of carbohydrates. Now, that's not my favorite refeed meal. If I had to choose, somebody in here, you guys should know what the best one is. Sushi. Sushi is really one of the best because it's rice, predominantly rice and fish. It's one of the cleanest refeeds there are. And rice is a fast digesting carb. So while it's still a complex carb, it's a fast digesting carb. We didn't even talk about that yet, and we're way over in time. So rice or a sushi is an amazing refeed meal because you're getting a huge burst of rice, and rice is fast digesting, so it'll just burn right up and go straight to your muscles. So that's kind of, I don't remember what the original question was, but did that kind of answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually kind of shocked my first 2 weeks on my kind of detox. I had tacos and I had rice, and I was like, how can, normally you would think those are not great food options because you want to stay away from those things. But really, when you think about it, they're actually not bad. Like, I was like, I can have a corn tortilla, really? Like, I didn't even think that that would be, that's not considered like a healthy marketed food, but tacos can be great.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at like a corn tortilla, for example, if you look at the ingredients in it, and this is where you can get really picky because we talked about refined and, refined and unrefined, right? So that can be a slippery slope, but sometimes we just can't help those things, right? But you look at the ingredients, the less ingredients, the less the more unrefined it is. But corn, like normally, like white corn tortillas are usually more unrefined because it's usually just corn. That's usually the process in it versus wheat and things like that. And that's why sprouted bread is better for you because it's more unrefined than refined white bread. Like white bread is the most refined bread out there.
So that's why they market like wheat bread as healthier option for bread. But it's not always the healthiest.
Not always, but yes, actually sourdough is better.
I
And
love
it's
that.
the way that, yeah, and it's the way that the sourdough is made makes it a little less unrefined. Yeah. Mhm.
Mm.
So, guys, if this was helpful, was this helpful, Marina? Was this the idea that you wanted?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, guys, if you like this, drop some green hearts in here if this was something that was useful to you. It wasn't as fun maybe as the other ones, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of information of how to properly fuel your body. And hopefully it made a little bit more sense why your meal plans look the way they do.
Yeah, it's definitely important to make the right choices for sure.
Mhm. And that's like, and I think we can end it on this note, like, because we started it with the weekend thing, and if we talk about that and you have a treat meal, if it's about just thinking about it. So while cold cream ice cream or whatever the heck that's
Cold
called.
Stone?
Thank you. See, that's how much I know about this stuff. Cold Stone Creamery sounds like it might be good, or the bag of, Doritos or the donut. Like, it's, the biggest thing to tell yourself is, first of all that is a taste thing. Like, it's doing nothing to fuel your body, no nutrients. It is a simple complex carb and that's a good way, like, guys, to remember what a simple complex carb is. Remember, it's usually going to taste sweet, usually. So that's like, what for me, I'm like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to waste my refeed on that when, like you just pointed out, I could have a burger and fries? Not McDonald's, but like go and have a decent, or have a taco, a fish taco,
Mm-hmm.
like, so just, it's about just stepping back a little bit and kind of like either think about stepping back or think about like zooming in and taking a bigger look at like what would be the best choice for me here in refeeding your body.
Yeah, I take walks on the beach and I watch people stuffing their faces with like pizza and like Doritos on the beach. And it kind of like makes me watch people because we mindless eat all the time. And now I'm like, I'm going to take a second, like pause and think like, what are these Doritos going to do for me? Or what is this pizza going to do for me and my body? So it definitely is a different way of thinking about it. I've never weighed my food before. I never measured food before. So it's definitely a new way of thinking about it for sure. And it's definitely flipped a switch because the weekend that I got married and I went a little off plan, I kind of missed my plan because I'm like, I kind of missed the structure a little bit.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that you hit on. First of all, what you just said is you're falling into, you're creating a habit. So, you've been following the program strong enough, tight enough to a plan where it becomes a habit, then it becomes a lifestyle. And what you just said, you kind of miss it. Like, where is that? Like, because food is now starting to become fuel to you. Like I talked about last week, there becomes a point in time in my prep where I don't give a crap about that food. I don't care if the fish is cold. I don't care if the rice is cold. I don't care if I'm just eating raw. I don't care. My body just, like, I can't even explain it. It's kind of like that animal instinct. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It's just, I need fuel and I need it now. And there's nothing else. I just want fuel, clean, unprocessed fuel. But you hit on that and you're starting to fall into that. And that's a sweet spot to be, because now you've kind of turned off the triggers in the brain. The other thing that you talked about is you said now you step back and you take 5 seconds. That's huge. So if you didn't know, you have 5 seconds to make a decision before your brain will take over. Like, that functional part of your brain will take over and that trigger will kick in. So it's super, like, within the first 5 that you do that is very well. You got 5 seconds to make that decision before your brain just goes, fuck it. So if you're sitting in bed like me and you want a rice cake, you got 5 seconds to reprogram that brain to go, do I really want that damn rice cake? What could I do differently? Or the ice cream or whatever that is. Like, you got 5 seconds to decide, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Do I need it? Otherwise, the brain's just going to go, fuck it. I'm just going to go get that. So it's good that you're doing that. So well done. Yeah, you're actually falling in, because that is something that, and that goes for anything. Like, it's decisions are made within the first 5 seconds. All right. Well, did you get all your questions answered?
Think so.
Yeah. All right. If you have any more questions, guys, drop them in the comments. I'll make sure to come check back. And if you guys didn't know and you're watching this, remember, hit hashtag replay if you're watching this on the replay, so we know you were here. Ask any questions. And for those of you that are still on the call and those of you that listen in, we are going to have another call that will be going live next Tuesday. So we'll have a tribe call on Wednesday, but we're also going to be live next Tuesday on my personal Facebook page, where you guys can hear. I'm going to have a special guest with me who's going to talk about her weight loss journey. So tune in. That is going to be 5 o'clock on Tuesday. All right. Bye, girl.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jules.
You're welcome. Okay.